Welcome to another episode of the Profitable Home Services Podcast. I'm so glad that you chose to join us again today. Recently, or maybe it's been a little while, I recorded an episode on 10 profit leaks. And I thought today I would go ahead and add another 10 to that list because it's important to have these and to possibly turn them into a checklist that you can use in your own business. So let me just recap the first 10 that we did in case you missed that episode. If you want some more information about them, be sure and go back and click on that episode. And then I will delve into the second 10 that we'll be talking about today. So our first 10 included profit leaks such as not taking advantage of risk management by utilizing a captive insurance company. If you want more information on that one, we have a podcast episode that talks about what is captive insurance. It's a pretty cool tool to use. How about increasing salaries to your team based on how long they've worked for you versus what their overall contribution is to your company and to your profits? That can be a huge profit leak. Or the business owner, the home service business owner, trying to do it all yourself. I know I've been guilty of that one in the past and not delegating correctly. Well, what if you were delegating correctly and able to do more of the CEO type things in your business? Another big profit leak right there. Or having the wrong retirement plan. I see profits leaking out in this all the time on plans that are provided by payroll companies or state-sponsored plans. When you have the right retirement plan, it is focused towards you as the business owner. And yes, we cover your employees, but we're mainly working to cover you and to help you build out your retirement plan in a successful manner. But let's now switch over to your CSR team. If we have an ineffective CSR team, yep, they're answering your phone, phones might be ringing, but are they converting them into sales? When's the last time you listened to a recording or lots of recordings of their calls? When's the last time you invested money on them, on their training? Huge profit leak in some businesses and their CSR team. Another profit leak we discussed last time was thinking that content creation out in social media world and on the internet is a nice to have, not a have to have. When we have great content, and then new customers or new prospects hit your website or see you out on the internet somewhere, it can immediately ramp up the credibility and the authority and help make your business the go-to place that they want to work with. How about lack of financial responsibility and knowing your numbers? Ooh, that's a big one. A lot of business owners are really great at doing things out in the field. They're great at helping their customers and making them feel taken care of. But boy, when it comes to the numbers, they want to put their head in the sand or run and hide. Well, I'm a big proponent of knowing your numbers, not just what's on your P&L and your balance sheet, but knowing all of your numbers. Are you tracking KPIs? Do you know what your team costs you every hour of every day? Do you know what your overhead costs are? Do you know what your profit is on each job? Have you planned for what your net profit is for this year? Knowing your numbers is so important. Come back and touch on CSRs again. Seems to be a lot of turnover in this department in many businesses. So what can we do to give them the training that they need so that they will stay longer and produce better for you? And then lastly, we wrapped up with a lack of tax planning. When you start to make profit and you start watching that bottom line grow, then there is a new need, one for tax planning, so that you're not overpaying your taxes and giving some of that new hard-earned profit to the IRS when you don't have to do that. Well, today I want to start and talk about 10 more profit leaks that we see. And I'm going to tell you that there are probably I would say 50 to 100 places in a business where we can find profit leaks. That's amazing, isn't it? Because it doesn't seem like there should be that many places in your business that money can be leaking out. but I know it is just from my experience of working with my coaching groups, in my one-on-one coaching and in my group coaching. We hear all kinds of profit leaks that we are able to work towards finding a way to plug them. So let's continue on with our list for today. Today is, let's talk about what happens when you have a customer callback. Well, that equates in doing additional work. Now you have to pull a technician, or maybe it's a plumber, a roofer, somebody off of another job, send them back to the one that wasn't done correctly, get that job fixed. That may take minutes, it may take hours. Get that job fixed, finalized, wrapped up to the customer's satisfaction. And now you can send that team member back out on a future job. Meanwhile, it costs the money of going back and working on that original job. Plus, you lost the money on the job that couldn't be done during the time where you were working on the original job. You lost money for mileage and gas and time, in ineffective or unproductive time. So this can be a large profit leak in certain kinds of businesses. So we really want to watch that one and keep a close eye on it. It comes back to knowing your numbers. How long should it take to do a particular job? Are they getting the job done timely? Are they thinking about things before they leave? Have they stopped and just looked, do I have everything done? Have I picked up all my tools? Have I left the place in a good looking situation? We've not left trash or garbage around, any of that type of stuff. But making sure that that job is done completely to your company's standards before they leave the job and drive away. I'm going to move on to talking about your current customers. How do you retain them? Have you spent any time building a relationship with them? So often we spend lots and lots and lots and lots of money cultivating new prospects, constantly looking for new prospects, new customers, got to hit the numbers, got to get a certain calls made every day, got to get all these things done to get these new customers coming in the door. But when's the last time you went and looked at your current customer list? When's the last time you reached out and said thank you at the end of a job? When's the last time you sent them something over the course of the year? Said, we're thinking about you, or send them a coupon for something, or develop a membership or a loyalty program and invite them into it, or the list could go on and on and on. Really working on those current customers is an amazing way to add profit to your bottom line, because it doesn't cost you anything more to get another job out of your current customer, or at the minimum, get a referral from that current customer. Those are free compared to the money that is spent to get leads and then follow up on all the leads. We want to switch gears now and talk about profit and cash flow. A lot of times I find when I'm working with home service businesses is that they equate profit to cash flow. They look at their bank account and say, see, here's how much money I have. That must be how much profit I have. And they are two different numbers. Profit comes from a formula that lands on your P&L statement or your income statement. The profit simply says that whatever was invoiced or received minus expenses is your net profit. But unfortunately, that profit does not take into account things like loan payments on your trucks and your vans. It does not take into account any employee advances that you may have done. Doesn't take into account any money that other people owe you, like accounts receivable. Does not take into account any shareholder distributions or draws. All of these other items are something that affect your cash flow. So profit does not equal cash flow. Cash flow is the true cash that's actually running through your company on a day-to-day, a weekly, monthly, and an annual basis. Profit can change. It's a tool for monitoring, but it's not the same as cash flow. And it's my goal and my desire for all of the home service businesses that I work with, that we develop and that we learn how to implement the profit first methodology. And in that profit first methodology, we are setting up bank accounts and we're transferring money into them so that we have the money set aside to pay our income taxes. We have the money set aside to make sure we, as the owner, are getting paid the wage that we should be paid. We have the money set aside to grow our company, whether we need to buy more vehicles, other kinds of equipment, move to a different location, whatever it might be, that money is set aside. We have the money set aside for an emergency, that quote, that rainy day that comes up. That money's been set aside and we've protected that money. Thereby, we help to increase cash flow because we're protecting this money. And then lastly, we have money set aside in our profit account, which is probably one of the most important accounts out there because that is our reward for being in business, for taking the risk that others are not willing to take. There's a lot of risk involved in being self-employed, and we carry that risk on our shoulders. So it's important that our profit account gets funded. And every quarter, then we're able to take a distribution from that account and use it for something that meets a goal, maybe in your personal life, or maybe you're paying down debt in the business or personally, or you're saving up for something big. I know for myself, my husband and I have been saving for years for a new home. And we'll be building our new home here in the next couple months, and it'll be totally paid for. We'll be debt-free with our new home. Thank you to a good savings plan and the Profit First with our consistent transfers into my profit account. So let's shift gears again now, and let's talk again about some callbacks. So I started this session talking about doing double work with customer callbacks, but what does that do to profitability? So let's say we have one of your guys and he's making, say, $35 an hour. Well, you're probably thinking in your mind, well, it's probably costing me $45 or maybe $50 an hour by the time I figure in his benefits and all the taxes and things like that have to be paid. But I want to say, what about his portion of overhead? When we add in that portion of overhead, that $35 an hour guy might be as high as $70 or $80 an hour. So when we have a callback, it's costing us that much money in an hour to have to send that person back out to a job site. Plus, it's costing us the cost of a job that could have been done during that time period. It's costing us a profit from that job. So these are big numbers that could potentially be costing us because of callbacks. And are you monitoring them? Are you tracking them? Are you paying attention to them? Very, very common and a very large profit leak in the home service business sector. I also want to talk about, on that same type of a vein, is, are you paying a relative or a friend to work in your business and they may not be carrying their whole load? This is a fairly common one I see amongst my coaching clients, is we've hired a brother, a sister, a cousin, an aunt, an uncle, whoever it might be, niece or nephew, somebody in the family needed a job. And so out of the kindness of your heart, you give them a job. Well, they end up not being a super performing employee for you. And maybe they're taking advantage of your company a little bit here and a little bit there, thinking, oh, nobody will notice. Nobody will catch it. Well, over time, your team morale starts going down because they see this person getting away with doing things that they themselves aren't doing. They see them maybe slipping out a little early, taking a little extra time on their lunch break, taking too long to get a job done, chit-chatting with somebody else and keeping them from getting their job done, or many other different things they might be doing. They might be talking bad about you behind your back. You just don't know what could be happening. And when we continue to keep this underperforming employee on, eventually our 5-star A-team type players get upset. They start getting unhappy with their job. And they're the ones that are making you money. They're the ones that are just pushing your company forward for you. And it's very important that we keep them happy and satisfied and keep them producing for you. So we want to think about this this person who may be a friend or a family member? And would it be a disservice to them to keep them in your business? What if you could help give them a position somewhere in a company where they would fit better? Or even if you couldn't find them a position somewhere where they might be a better fit, pay them to stay home. You can keep them on the payroll and give them some sort of a minimum pay to keep them out of your way of your producing employees. So just thought that's a different kind of a profit leak than you may have even thought about. My next question for you is, do you have a perfect 10? You're thinking, Diane, what's a perfect 10? I don't even know what you're talking about. Well, have you ever stopped and taken time to develop a checklist that can be followed at the end of each job, detailing from the big items all the way down to the small items? If you're a roofing company, does your checklist contain things like checking for nails on the ground, little bits and pieces of roofing, especially if it's metal roofing? If you're in HVAC, did we pick up all the stuff? Did we leave our customers' home as tidy or tidier than it was when we got there? Did we pick up our trash and dispose of it correctly? If you're in plumbing, did you clean up the mess you left behind? Just all these types of things in addition to actually doing the job correctly. I think this is my personal opinion, but I think it would be worth having somebody come along and check at the end of each job. You might even have them chatting with the customer about what they felt, how the job went, and then giving a score at the end of this checklist and adding up the points and rewarding your teams that come up with a perfect 10. Could you give them some sort of a small bonus that the team shares in? Could you give them some other little perk that would make them feel valued and important to you and want to repeat that same behavior again and again and again? Share a little story with you. One of my clients is a roofing company, and the roof on my office building had been leaking in a couple different places for a couple years, and we were just getting frustrated. We couldn't seem to find the leak. And so finally I had them come and put a new roof on. They blew me away. Not only did they clean up after themselves completely, they were out there sweeping our parking lot and making sure that there was no stray nails, because they took a metal roof off, put a composition roof on, making sure there's no stray screws, making sure that all the pieces of metal and everything got picked up. And then they put the existing or the old metal in a nice pile off to the side, and we were able to sell it to somebody who could use it on their own building. But they blew me away. What an amazing job they did in cleanup. They were courteous. They were careful not to block the areas where my clients were coming in and out. They were just such a great team of guys to work with. How does your team score when they're doing a job for somebody? How do they score when they're in somebody's home or when they're in somebody's business? Maybe they're doing something as simple as just changing some lights if you're an electrician, or swapping out something, or adding in some more receptacles, whatever it might be. How do they score? Do they leave a mess behind? I had a painting company that was supposed to have painted the interior of my office, and when we came in, there was brush streaks all down the wall. It was awful. I thought my grandson, who was a little kid at that time, could have painted that wall better than those guys did. They had to come back and repaint that wall 3 different times because it looked like trash every single time. What did that cost them? They didn't make a dime on this painting job because they kept having to come back and redo it. Now, if they would have had a perfect 10 checklist and somebody came and looked at it, that would never have gotten past them, and they would not have had to come back 3 different times and repaint the interior of my office. So what is your perfect 10? What kind of questions would go on your checklist? Stop and give that some consideration, some thought. Maybe it's something you've never even thought about before, or maybe it's something you've thought about and it's been on the back burner, and you've never stopped and taken the time to develop that checklist. Put your team in a little area and let them come up with the ideas of what needs to be on that checklist. You don't have to come up with it out of your head. You've got a team out there who's doing the work. Let them come up with it. And I bet you'll start finding that your jobs are done better. They're done at a higher quality level. Your customers are happy. You're getting better reviews. And it becomes a win-win all around because your customers are now referring you more. And you'll start seeing an increase in sales. Plus, your team will start taking pride in what they're doing. And that will start building your employee morale up even higher, especially if you get a little bit of competition going between a couple teams. This could turn out to be a lot of fun in the long run. I want to end with lack of marketing to your current customers. If you've heard me on any of my other episodes, I talk a lot about building out customer relationships. How can you build a relationship with a customer that you're just in their home one time? How can you build that out where you get to come back into that home? You're invited back in for something else. Have you thought about sending a personalized thank you note after the job is finished? What about reaching out to them with some sort of a newsletter, not trying to sell them something, but offering them information? Or offering them some sort of a special deal because they're one of your current customers. How about offering them a loyalty program? So many visits and you get something for it. How about moving into the subscription model to where you are servicing them in areas that maybe they weren't expecting to be serviced? How about thinking outside the box? One of my favorite books is Finding Your Yellow Tux by Jesse Cole. That's such an amazing book because he really challenges you to think outside the box. Look at other industries and what are they doing? Can you take those ideas and bring them back into the home service business industry? What are some things that you could do so that your customers would remember your name? There's nothing worse than to do a job for a customer, and then when they need something similar done in the future, they can't find your name, they don't remember who you are, and so they call somebody else. You want to be that first name on the tip of their tongue when they need that type of service again. Or better yet, you're in their home, you're in their business, you're on their property, doing something in a maintenance or a service mode so they see you coming on a regular basis. They recognize your van, they recognize your truck when they see you. Build out that relationship. Let them know how much you appreciate them. It's definitely cheaper to market to your current customer than it is to constantly be trying to find new ones. Those current ones can become very valuable to you when you start looking at the lifetime value of that customer. What are they worth to you over a period of 5 to 10 years? How many thousands of dollars could that be over that time period? They're not just a transaction. They're a long-term relationship. So stop and think about that one a little bit. I know on this episode, I'm hoping I've challenged you and challenged your maybe a mindset shift a little bit. How can we do these things, close up these profit leaks, and put more of that money in our bottom line profits, which means ultimately we get to take home a little bit more. We're able to pay our team better. We want our teams to be the better paid teams out there because we're all contributing to these bottom line profits. We want our teams to be proud of where they work. We want them to do the best job that they can do for your customers and for your community. So I'm hoping you found value in these second set of profit leaks. You might want to go back and listen to the episode on the first 10. The second 10, at some point, maybe I can bring you a third set of 10. Meanwhile, until then, thank you so much for joining me today on the Profitable Home Services podcast. Stay profitable, and I'm going to challenge you to be proud to be profitable. That is something that America needs, is proud, profitable home service businesses. Take care. Have a great week. I'll catch you on the next episode.